If I were to describe Deadpool, I would describe him as that fun friend you run into at the bar or the club every once in a while. It's always unplanned, it's always spontaneous, but they are always a good time. You have some laughs, you have some drinks, you have some shots, but then you move on from that night, you go about your life, and you don't really make an effort to hang out with that person individually. Whether you invite them to dinner, to coffee, or over for a game night, you are fully content just spontaneously running into them every once in a while if you happen to be at the same bar or the club, and you are fine with that. And that is my relationship with Deadpool. He is fun, but not necessarily important enough to me to make extra time for in my life. The first Deadpool film was very fun, and it was very original, and it was very unlike any other superhero movie we have ever had, ever. And I appreciated that, but it didn't draw me in far enough, or it didn't emotionally impact me enough to earn a place on my shelf. So my expectations were more in the middle in terms of going into this second one. And I would say for the first 2/3 of this film, it was better than the first one. But it was in the last third, not so much, and it got a little bit sloppy. Let's take a moment to talk about Ryan Reynolds. I get it. He is amazing in this role. He was made to play Deadpool. There is no other actor out there in Hollywood that I could picture playing Deadpool. He is hilarious, he's brilliant with the jokes, on delivering the jokes, and I find him very entertaining, and I'm very much drawn to him on screen. But my main issue with Ryan Reynolds in this role is that he's not acting. He's not transforming himself, and for that reason alone, he loses a few points for me if I'm to compare other celebrities that have taken on superhero roles. For example, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, he transforms himself into Wolverine because Hugh Jackman in real life is like the opposite of Wolverine completely. Ryan Reynolds just doesn't transform himself, and that's okay for this role. One of the things I appreciated the most about this Deadpool sequel, without giving away any spoilers, is the introduction of new characters. My first standout, I must say, has to go to Domino, played by Zazie Beetz. I thought she was very entertaining and very fun on screen. I enjoyed every sequence she was in. Josh Brolin as Cable does a fantastic job. I appreciated his presence, and I wanted more from him. I felt that I could have been fed a lot more from Cable and what he brought to the role and his balance with Deadpool and everybody else. Without going into spoilers for the plot, I did enjoy his presence on screen, and I would have wanted a bit more. The way that the plot developed and the way certain characters were developed or not developed, there were many surprises and many things that completely caught me off guard. But like I said, the first 2/3 of this film were fan-fucking-tastic. They were so funny, and I was very much on board with the story that they were telling. And then that third act, it kind of derails and kind of goes off the tracks, and you're kind of hoping, at least I was hoping, it would kind of get back on the tracks. I'm like, okay, maybe this is just a detour, and it's not a detour. Okay, it's, okay, this is where we're going. Which felt very anticlimactic to me. It tried really, really hard to get you emotionally invested in certain elements that played into the third act, and I just wasn't. I really wasn't. It didn't do enough for me to get me on board with it, and I was sitting there thinking, like, this could be so much better. In one of the previews, at one point you hear Ryan Reynolds say, look at the camera and say, well, that's just lazy writing. And in a joking standpoint, you know, that's fine. That's forgivable for one joke, but at one point I'm sitting there asking myself, okay, I get that that was meant to be a joke and they're calling themselves out, but at which point do you reach the line where that's forgivable or not? And I felt that it wasn't forgivable at a certain point. I'm like, okay, you know what, that worked for one gag, but I'm really kind of irritated because this is lazy writing. I feel like this is a cheap way out. Don't get me wrong, this is not a bad movie by any means. It is a great first 2/3 of a movie, minus the last third, and that is disappointing because you always want to stick the landing. Deadpool has some fantastic characters. Ryan Reynolds does an amazing job within the role. There are some really fun action set pieces, and there are some very fun characters introduced that do a good job, some characters that are introduced that play out in ways that I didn't really get or want them to play out that way, and some that were just not used at all. But the jokes landed very well, it was very enjoyable, it kept moving, the pacing was good, and the first 2/3 I thought were a pretty fucking amazing movie, but it was only that last third that it really derailed and kind of lost me. I'm going to give Deadpool 2 a B. And that's my review of Deadpool 2. What did you think? Write your thoughts down below. I hope you enjoyed this, and until next time, I am Ryan Boehme, signing off. Bye, everyone.